Hello everybody and welcome back. On this week's video, what I would like to show you guys is how I create my cave terrain. Now, I do have a write-up of this already that exists on my website, miniaturemarauder.com. For those that like the written details, more pictures, I have all of that there. For this video, I'm going to do something different that I've actually done in one of my other videos, where I have replicated pretty much the phases of producing the final product. I did this in my gold scatter terrain video, and it worked out pretty well. So if you like that kind of tutorial and that step-by-step phase, let me know in the comments down below. If you prefer seeing these things created live in a more sped-up fashion, I do have videos where I do that as well, but I'm going to give this one a whirl. It is a little extra work for me to do this, so hopefully you guys find this valuable and you'll be creating cave terrain in no time. So the first thing that we're going to do here is to produce these cave tiles. You're going to start out with your pink modular foam. Now, I buy these things in 3x3 sheets. They're a little over $5 from Home Depot. You'll see in a lot of my videos, I pretty much use all of this pink foam. It's widely used, and this is what you can find in the US. I've cut this small piece out just to be, a representation of the size that I use when I create my tiles. So you're going to take this and you're going to begin cutting it either with a blade, a hot wire tool, a Proxen hot wire cutting table, whatever tool that you have. You're going to get different results based on what you use. So I used my Proxen table, and this is what I've done. So I've gone from my foam to cutting out different shapes. I did this so that I could stack them one on top of the other. You don't have to do that, but I think it adds a little bit more depth to your piece overall. When you cut with a Proxen, you're going to cut on an angle. So you're going to run this through the line so you get this nice angle. Some people prefer a more sheer face to the side of their stone work. You can do that as well. It's your piece. Do as you like. I will say that it does give it a very nice look when you put the pieces overlapping and overlaying on top of each other. This is the same format that I use when I create stone hills. It's a good base. It won't always look exactly like this in shape when it's done, but it is an excellent structural base to begin with. So once you've got these pieces cut out and you're happy with how they look, different sizes, different levels, that kind of thing. Now you are going to go into the next step, which is using some dowels, cutting them, gluing them together. I use this right here. You'll see this recurring in a lot of my videos. Tacky glue works really well on the foam. Takes a little while to dry, but it's very, very reliable. So I've taken the wooden dowels, and what I've done is wooden dowel like this. You can get them for pretty much pennies at most stores, but they come in packs now of varying sizes, Home Depot, Walmart, craft shops, you name it. Get them in different sizes. That way you can whittle down the edge to a point, to a rough point, and then you clip it, cut it off, and boom, you've got yourself a stalagmite, stalactite, however you want to use it. And then you just pop them into your foam. So something that you might not have considered or known about foam and the way that it is compressed when it's created, if you try to just jab a point or an object into your foam, it's going to actually blow out the back side of the foam because the compression forces it out and it separates, and it might ruin your piece if you've got a multi-sided piece that you're going to use. So what you can do is take this piece right here, the pointy end, point it down, twist it like a drill, and it'll create the hole large enough for you to pop your pieces into place. Then when you're satisfied with where you want them to go, you just glue them into place and they're all set. There's a reason I didn't glue this one particular piece. One is to show you. The other is, well, I'll talk about that here near the end of the video as to why this center piece is kind of important for other tiles that I'm going to use. So once you've got this done, the next thing that you're going to want to do is now you are going to want to cover it with texturing. In a lot of my videos, you'll see I use a wood putty. It's basically a wood filler. It dries very hard. It's got a lot of good texture to it. It's pretty easy to work with, although it's a bit messy when you're putting it on. It's sandable, paintable, and stainable. So it's just really reliable. And the most important thing about it is you can get a lot of it, and it's pretty cheap. In fact, the stuff that I use is this that I picked up at a recent trip to a hardware store. You can find it pretty much everywhere, but this is the one that I use, and it's a huge, massive tub. Doesn't take a whole lot of it to create this much texture on your pieces. So extremely, extremely valuable tool set, especially if you're trying to produce a lot of terrain and you want to do it as cheaply as possible. So moving on to the next step here. Now we've got this piece all set. As you may have seen me mention and other creators out there that work with foam, you're going to want to use a Mod Podge black mixture. This is going to seal it. It's going to prevent when you use spray paints or anything that comes out of an aerosol can from melting your foam pieces. So I take my Mod Podge here, mix in some black paint until it's actually black, not gray. You don't want it to be gray. You want it to be as black as you can get it so that when it dries, you get this nice black piece. I've actually ended up using a gloss because that's what I had on hand when I made my mixture. I prefer the matte Mod Podge better, but gloss does the same job, as you can see, and it really doesn't matter because you're going to be painting over this piece anyway. Takes about 2, maybe 3 coats, depending how you do it. You want to make sure that you brush everything down so that there are no bubbles. If there are bubbles in your Mod Podge mixture when they dry, it will dry with bubbles in it. So it can ruin your piece and takes a little bit of experimenting. But when it's all said and done, you're going to have this nice piece that's ready to be painted, primed, and whatnot. So going from that piece back to our final, these are the steps that I took in between that Mod Podge phase and the final product. I use a mixture when I'm doing my materials. I like a lot of color variants and textures. I don't like to just prime a single color. So what I did first was I primed it in a brown color. You can use anything. I typically use Army Painter sprays because they're cheap and effective. My top layer I did in browns, and also I just sprayed spotty around the recesses. And then you just kind of spritz gray or whatever stone coloring you prefer to use all around the edges. You don't really need to wash these pieces unless you really want to. If you did, I'd probably wash up here where the wood plastic is, where you get the most bang for your buck from the texture and the depth that a wash will give you. But overall, because of the way that I prime, I don't really need to wash because the details are still there. And then once all of the priming has been done, I just dry brush it very aggressively. Typically, I will use an off-white color. Sometimes I will use 2 different colors, an antique white, again, cheap acrylic paints are what you want to use here. You don't want to be using your good stuff. Use the stuff that you can get from Home Depot, Walmart, any craft shop, 99 cents for a little bottle of acrylic, and dry brush over it, wait for it to dry, then go over it with a much, much brighter white color to pick out all the nice fine details, and you'll have yourself a good piece. This is one of the older pieces that I used before I actually started creating the Mod Podge mixtures. And the reason that that's important, here's a prime example, you'll get wear off. So this was put in a bin next to other foam pieces that were protected. This one wasn't, so it wore off the paint down to pink. So now I'm going to have to go back and touch that up or throw out the piece and then reseal the whole thing. So the Mod Podge level will kind of protect that because it hardens it up a lot, so it's not as easy to scrape off that level down to the foam. So another good reason to use that stuff. Tying back to, pardon the reach, tying back to this piece and why I took out this one small hole in the middle here. You want to add a little variance to your caves, right? This piece is a great piece. It goes on the table. You can throw it in anywhere. You can stack it on top of other stuff, and that's great. But I wanted more of variance with my caves. So what I've done is I placed all these holes here. And so if I wanted, I could take a much longer piece, stick it in there, and then make another base piece and put it on top. And that way I've got a double layer cave tile. So one of my favorite pieces that I've retouched up on is this guy right here. So now I've got this center column that connects the top and the bottom. So now you've got overhanging stalagmites, I can never remember which one of those, but you got these overhanging spikes that are down, that are up here, and then the ones down here. And the nice thing is it's flat on both sides. So I can flip this thing any direction that I want and make a really nice modular piece. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about, and this is something that I've also started making changes on, I use my wooden dowels in various sizes. I whittle them down. I create the spikes. That makes these pieces right here. to add a little bit more variance, or if you prefer them and like them better, these big thick spikes right here, I've got a ton. And I mean, oh my God, I have a ton of leftover foam pieces sitting in boxes from all the stuff that I produce, mainly because I don't want to throw them out when I feel like I could use them for something. I find the big pieces, I whittle them down, I chop them into essentially what is another spike or a cone, and once they go into place, you're going to do the same wood putty treatment to them and follow the same steps. And now you've got a nice variance. Now you've got these nice big spikes along with these little spikes right here, and you have a very solid terrain piece to work with. Create a couple of these, 4, 5, 6 of them mixed in with some of your smaller pieces, and you've got yourself a nice working tile set for a cave dungeon to work in with your players. I hope you guys found this informative and useful, and this is something that you can take back to your tabletop games. I have many more pieces of these dungeon tiles that I need to produce. Hopefully you liked this breakout style of showing you what it looks like from foam to finished. If you do like that, let me know in the comments down below. Some future terrain that I'm working on producing right now follows suit with that same kind of tutorialized instruction. Next week, I will be showing you guys how I've produced my ice terrain, frozen landscape modular terrain. On that, I also have a written tutorial on miniaturemarauder.com, but I will show you guys a video tutorial as well. So thank you guys again so much. If you like these videos, I try to produce them weekly for you. Feel free, leave a comment down below, ask any questions that you might have, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you guys again.